Okay, so the topic of this webinar, and I was hoping to get somebody else on with me today, but that wasn't able to pull that off. Typically, there's a few of us. Sometimes I'm not even leading this part of it. We've got a lot of really awesome practitioners. But the topic this time is decentralization, which I think is such an important one if we're thinking about movement, is that we can't really be thinking top down. It's really critical that we're thinking about encouraging, coaching, and releasing people. That success isn't gathering as many people as we can into a certain space, but how do we raise up, equip, resource, and release people to go out and make disciples that make disciples and send them out everywhere? I think one of the best metaphors that I heard for this is the chess metaphor. And forgive me if you're not a chess player, but the idea being if you want to get really good at chess, remove your queen because we tend to rely on that piece. The queen's able to do a whole lot more than the other pieces. It's sort of your ninja piece. You remove the queen, and then you have to learn how to use all your other pieces. You're not going to be very good for a while. You're going to get your butt kicked on a chessboard. But eventually you'll start to try to hold your own. You're going to learn how to use some of your other pieces. And COVID has been one of those times where if you think about, um, the past couple years here, year and a half, whatever it is, I'm losing track of time. But if you think about the since COVID started and we had to get rid of our Sunday gatherings, the Sunday gathering was something most churches relied very heavy on. That's sort of the center of operations. That's the biggest, baddest thing that we do. And a whole lot of the work, energy, effort, planning, staffing, all that stuff went into Sunday. Then suddenly, within a matter of weeks, Sunday gatherings are gone. And now we're trying to figure out, all right, well, how do we use our pawns and our rooks and knights and everything else? And so I think it's this real interesting, what does it look like to actually make disciples? What does it look like to be on mission? How do we encourage everybody in their gifting, empower them, release them, so that the priesthood of all believers are empowered as we try to make a difference together as a community of people? I think the other analogy that is a really good one is the starfish analogy. If you think of the sort of a traditional church model as being like a spider, that if you cut off the leg of a spider, if you like pull it off, if you're sick and twisted like that, you rip off the leg of a spider, what happens to the spider? Well, the spider would struggle along and have a little bit of a harder time walking. If you pull another leg off, the spider's having a little bit more of a challenge. But if you take the head off the spider, it's dead, it's gone. But the starfish, if you compare the spider and the starfish, if you cut a leg off a starfish, the leg actually grows back. It regenerates. But the cool thing is if you cut off the leg of a starfish and you get any part of the center in it, that it forms another new starfish. So you get reproduction and multiplication there. And so I think that image of church not as being something centralized, that if you chop out the Sunday, if you knock off, a gathering or a certain leader or something like that, there goes the church. That if you think about the early church as a group of people that were persecuted, scattered, you got rid of their leaders, there was no necessarily centralized gathering spot. The church actually grew and multiplied, and the gates of hell could not prevail against it. You look back to the early church, they had no clergy professionally, no buildings, but they met riverbanks and business marketplaces and homes. And it was a viral movement that went crazy. So I started thinking about the variety of micro churches that we have, and it just fills me with all kinds of joy. I'm a visual person too, so I thought it might be good to show you a couple images. This is one of our micro churches decided to gather at a theater, and because COVID caused this theater to almost not make it, they said, we see our mission as this community, and one of the places that we want to bless in this community is this theater, try to keep this thing alive. So we did a reverse offering, and all of the offering that was taken was given back to the theater to help bless them. Then we prayed over the workers at the theater, took communion with popcorn, doing things just to bless these people, try to keep this thing alive and reach the workers at the theater. So that's one image. Give you a few more images here. Uh, this one, whoop, hold on. Here is an image of those who are, that's my son and daughter there in the middle. This lady here on the left, she and a group of friends started a movement to bless the tent city in Harrisburg. So they serve 100 meals, homeless people every week. And we're talking like real amazing stuff because it isn't like drop stuff off to feel better about yourself. It's like they know the people. They know who is gluten free. They have specialized menus for different people. They have relocated. Um, One of the homeless guys lost his dog, relocated the dog, got him back, got the dog back to the owner under a bridge. They're taking supplies. They know the people's clothing sizes, dropping the stuff off. They're friends, right? 100 meals a week. They spend morning preparing the meals. They're there all afternoon and evening. They have people going other nights of the week. It's really amazing sort of ministry that they got going on. But that's another kind of image here. If you can see the conditions that people are living in here, right? Really crazy kind of stuff, right? Just climbing over wrappers and trash and all that kind of stuff. But these people are out there really living it beautifully. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And we got groups that are able to, and meeting at parks, various locations together. Just giving you different images for decentralized picture and expression of church. We've got one of our micro churches here. I was happy to just do a wedding for them. Check this one out. So they see themselves as missionaries to the Renaissance Fair. So when I just did the wedding, the groom was dressed like Prince Charming, and he's like, "We're going to do things a little bit different for this wedding." And then one of his groomsmen came running out as he pulled out like these papyrus papers, and he's reading this love story about himself and his bride. About halfway through the 20 pages of papyrus that he's reading, handwritten, one of these groomsmen comes running out with a sword, and you can see him there dressed up sort of Viking style, runs out with a sword, shoves it into the ground. A little bit later, the explorer comes out. He's hiding behind a tree with binoculars, and then the village drunk comes out and he's stumbling over people. Anyway, it was quite the scene, but it gives you an image. These people see themselves as missionaries to the Renaissance Fair. They're praying for people, blessing people. They're there constantly connecting with people. They're thinking about how do we see these people experience Jesus. When I asked them how they're gathering as a community of people to experience Jesus together, those who have come to faith, they were in a barn reading scriptures together, dancing, playing old instruments, the lyre, Scottish flute, stuff like that. Really, really beautiful stuff. Anyway, then I just visited this past weekend one of our churches, which is a uh, beer church. So this guy opened up a brewery, He does Belgian sour kind of stuff. I was just there. Oh, where where are we here? There it is. This is really, there's a cool image here. Um, so this was this past Sunday morning. He's got swings outside of the brewery, so the kids are sitting outside. You got breakfast and swings and people hanging out there. So they rotate between a couple different locations. They've got a theater, an improv theater. They're gathering at this brewery, and all kinds of people that would never typically step through the doors of a church building on a Sunday are connecting in these sorts of places. So I think one of the keys when we think about decentralization is freedom and permission giving. That we want to give people freedom to try things and to really sort of listen to the Spirit of God in terms of who are the people that I'm called to? Who has God called me to? Usually in terms of like they sense a calling because there are a group of people that they feel drawn to, that they love, that they connect with, maybe a common interest, maybe a cause that they feel passionate about, maybe something that they feel angry, like a righteous anger because there's some sort of injustice or brokenness in a part of the city. And because of that, they say, we feel called to these people. So they start with mission. I think you have to start with mission. You start with mission and you start with a teammate or a couple teammates and you say, what does it look like? What does church look like for these people? You start on mission. You love these people, bless these people, listen to people, connect where they're at, become a part of their community. And in the process of that, you begin to meet some of those needs, pray for the people, see people come to faith, and community forms. When community forms, you start to think about what does worship look like with these people? What are their challenges and idols? How can we help them experience Jesus more deeply? How do we train people up? And then you're always thinking about who do they feel called to? From day one, as soon as you're forming something, your goal is eventually I want these people to leave. My hope and my prayer is that when they grow up, they leave the nest, they go out and they form new things. And so success is always sending and releasing. I think I've told some of you guys a story of someone who started a church, and when he started the church in his founding documents, he put the end date to the church. And he started the church with the end date. And in 20 years, we were going to dissolve this church plant into the founding documents. Idea being that none of the churches from the first century are still around in terms of local body. You've got churches in cities, of course. Tracy will be like, wait, city church. He's right. But the legacy is in reproduction, multiplication, right? That everything healthy, if you have a family and they have children and their children grow up and they get married and they have children and they grow up and get married and have children. And so that every living organism, hopefully, is going to experience healthiness and reproduction and multiplication. That from day one, your goal is not that you would feed people forever, but that you would see people come to faith, you feed them, but then they begin to feed themselves and begin to feed others. They, within every Christian is a church planter, potentially. Every church, a church planting church that you want to help people see who God is calling them to and then release them and send them and support them and coach them, encourage them, give them the tools so that they can reach out and people around them. Of course, one of the challenges to this is culture of excellence. And if you've been in a church world for long, you know that there's this challenge that we all face of wanting to put on really great services and programs, do a really good job, clean it up, have our stuff be really excellent, teaching be perfect. And it is absolutely messy. It is absolutely messy to decentralize and release people and send people and say, go. It's part of why, one, we send them out in pairs. We need that accountability, camaraderie, support. We need people to team up together, at least pairs. That's what Jesus did, send the disciples out in pairs. But then the other key to that is ongoing coaching, support, equipping. We're going to meet up, we'll have lunch, meet up again. You set up the meeting from the meeting, ongoing trainings where you gather with a group of people. You want a network that's decentralized, that has low control, because you're giving people freedom to start things, form things, try things, experiment. Not everything has to work. A lot of it's not going to work. But man, we're going to be there so that you're not alone. I coach you and listen to you and pray for you. We'll continue to offer you tools, resources, and support so that you don't have to do this journey alone. I think it's also really critical, and bear with me because we will have lots of time for Q&A, but this is for the recording piece that people can watch later. Really important that this is not too complex for the average Joe. So if we believe in the priesthood of all believers, if we believe in the priesthood of all believers and believe that every single person who knows Jesus is filled with the Spirit of Jesus and then sent into the world as missionary disciple makers, then we cannot have systems that are super complex that require you to have a PhD in order to make disciples that make disciples that make disciples. So I think something really simple you may have heard language like up, in, and out, that we're a community of worship, or we're looking at worship, community, mission. We use the language of centered on Jesus, sent by Jesus, living as a family. But you need at least the elements of Jesus is at the center of what we're doing. We're centering ourselves on Jesus. We're worshiping God together. We're living as a community. We're a family of believers, and we're out on mission. Is least needs to have those elements. Um, yeah. So this is where I'm going to, because I think there's going to be a lot of really good dialogue. This is where I'm going to end the recording section. So those of you that are watching, please, those of you that are watching later, please jot comments down below. We'll interact with you. Send an email, text message. We'll talk with you about decentralizing, sending and releasing, and coaching and empowering people. But thank you. Thanks for watching, and catch you later.